It's Mark and Pete.
Welcome to the show. This week's colourful conversation, the growing problem of obesity. It's quite an alarming statistic that particularly in the UK, 26% of adults are obese. Now, this paints a very alarming picture and reveals the obesity epidemic in England. Of course, although England is just one example where obesity rates are extremely high, it also applies to Europe and also in places like America. Now, interestingly enough, this doesn't actually apply to adults alone. In fact, a statistic from the NHS revealed that children attending reception class, that's those between the age of 4 to 5 years, were actually 9.5% of them were obese. Now, of course, this raises some serious health issues.
Yes, I mean, I agree. I think I've been looking at those statistics myself, Mark, and I've noticed that at a young age people are getting overweight and further getting obese. But I did notice also that people who are older, say, 10, 11 into early teens, are already getting obese. People are saying that the millennium generation, people born since the year 2000, so you're talking about 14-year-olds if you're born in 2000, quite a proportion are obese, and it may be that it's a lifestyle thing, too much eating, but too much not getting exercise, and it just so happens got a great song about that. This is not me singing. This is a YouTuber. The YouTube channel is called Obnoxious Ellie. We'll put a link in the show notes. Just listen to this.
Okay.
Sitting on the couch, drinking, popping a Capri Sun pouch, watching Ash catch 'em all, because he's too fat to go and play ball. Obesity, just so much obesity. Obesity, so much obesity.
Clearly, it was not you singing. What do you typically like to overindulge in? I mean, what are your food cravings?
Well, I'm not really one for sweet foods, so I wouldn't necessarily go for chocolate or little light sweets like what are the famous sweets like wine gums or things like that. I wouldn't go for that. I'd go for something more savoury, say like cheese. I do like a lot of cheese. I lived abroad for a bit in a place where they don't eat cheese, and I had it sent over from Britain so that I could have my regular supplies of cheese. If you eat too much of it, of course, really does get you to put on the pounds. But
yes.
What is it that you? What is your craving there, Mark? Come on.
Yes, I must admit that
Share it with the listener.
Do have many cravings. I am very partial to a piece of cheese, but I have to say that at one time, and I must admit that I have readdressed this, but at one time I was particularly adept at polishing off an entire packet of fondant cakes in one sitting. Quite regularly.
Well, I'm impressed, I have to say. Yeah, it's very good. But I mean, was this in a competition?
I think sugar would be my probably one of my weaknesses there.
Icing sugar, yeah. Well, it's bad for the teeth as well. It doesn't just put on weight.
Of course.
But I think I'm winning on this one because I think per unit weight of the foodstuff, I think that cheese has more calories in it.
Well, that's true. But
I think I win with the cheese. I could pack in more calories in one go.
Yeah, because I think that the song really raises quite an important point, and that is that, I suppose we ought to decide and really understand what is obesity. So obesity really is classified in a particular way. So many doctors and nurses will classify your body mass index. So that's your BMI, which is often referred to. This is essentially a person's health in relation to their weight and their height, and it's a form of calculation. Now, essentially what they're saying is that if you are considered obese, there is a scale, and if you are 30 to 39.9, it means you are considered obese. Now, if you're over that, so for example, if you're 40 or and over, that means that you are severely obese or morbidly obese. And clearly that is something which is really serious, not just in terms of the fact that you are, clearly your health is going to be impaired, but you're putting yourself at serious risk. So, for example, there are many threatening diseases that could come from it. So, for example, recently the media has been talking about this, really to bring awareness of the dangers. Type 2 diabetes is certainly one issue. Coronary heart disease is another, and even forms of cancer. So that could be anything from breast cancer and bowel cancer. So although we tend to sort of look at it in a very light-hearted way about people being slightly podgy, there is a real serious side to this. And in fact, it really is not just about that you may not be able to run for the bus quickly enough. It could actually mean your life is at risk. So I thought, well, I would really reflect that by giving a little insight in terms of my thinking, in terms of a poem. So I thought this would be a good point or a juncture to really reflect some rather thought-provoking moments. Past the expiry date. Tick-tock, iced chalk, and time for rich temptations, sucking softly with every second, consumed with sweet sensations. Guzzle, gobble, gallons of grease, with a jaw full of joy to a mouthful of merriment, cheeks filled with cheeriness from a sumptuous syrupy experiment, fanciful flavours, fads and caprice, teeth tingling tastiness and gum-sucking gooey gorges, and eye-watering wonders spark cravings that a foodie forges, shameful, shocking sugar release, lips laced with lusciousness to palates topped with pangs, gullets filled with gorgeousness to tongue tantalizing tangs, peck, pick, pop another piece, orifices oozing with avarice and a chest chock-a-block, digestion indulged in deliciousness all hours around the clock, uptake intake on the increase, now hips saddled with unhappiness to a belly full of guilt, chins droop like chocolate drops from the body bulk built, heartbeat pulses slowly decrease, loins loaded like lumps as skin starts to crease, legs enlarged and laden with lard, too morbidly obese, bittersweet sounds of peace, the weight of expectations craves for greed to cease, now the hour of fear from the chocolatier, a time to decease.
Oh dear.
Yes. So
serious one this time. My goodness.
A very direct point of message here to say that really, if you allow your health to really degrade in such a way that your body mass index or your weight exceeds where most people would see as being a healthy bracket, so that would be anything between a BMI of, say, 20 to 22. That would be a good weight. It actually can affect your health, but also it could kill you.
Yes, I mean, it is very serious. It could kill you, it could shorten your life for quite a bit, depending on whether other health issues come about because of your weight. But there were so many, I mean, that we couldn't list them here. There's so many different diseases that you're more susceptible to because of your weight. And then treatment becomes more difficult because of your weight. Because
yes.
not just because of the layers, let's put this bluntly, the layers of fat people have to get through to get to your body, but also because of a lot of overweight, if you're very much overweight, I was going to say heavily overweight, but that's sort of like saying it twice, isn't it? If you're very overweight, it becomes very difficult to treat people because you're really not healthy enough. You need to start cutting down on food straight away, don't you?
Well, it puts a question about responsibility because it has been noted that there is an alarming amount of people who need to go on the NHS, and of course people are questioning them. Well, is that really the NHS's responsibility to try and bail these people out? Is that fair?
Well, I guess it isn't fair, and I think fairness is an important point here. Here on Mark and Pete on the on the show and on the website, we like to put across certain ideas that are helpful: long-termism, localism, and one thing that I think is an important way to approach things is taking on board the idea of personal responsibility. So if you take your responsibility personally, it's like extreme localism, I guess. If you take on board personally what you would like everyone else to do, then it starts with you. In Christian terms, where church is often talking about revival, there's a famous song which says, praying, "Lord, send revival, start with me." And I think in order to sort out the problem, we need to sort out our own problems. And I think it is personal responsibility. You don't want to start always expecting people to come in and sort things out for you. We were talking about this a bit when we were talking about pensions in a previous episode of Mark and Pete. We had a discussion about planning for your retirement and pensions, and it came up the idea that people have a sense of that they need to be looked after by the state from cradle to grave. Somehow the state's indebted to them. Well, if you take on personal responsibility, it ends up being that the state can take care of things around the edges when there are difficulties, and then it works well enough. There's enough resources to spread around. And in the same way, when we're talking about a health service looking after you, it shouldn't be that the health service needs to help you to eat correctly. I mean, that's your responsibility. Now, the Bible has something to say about this. So just a brief look at what it says in Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 23 in the Bible is a very good one to look at for this. And it says, so I'm just going to read a couple of verses from Proverbs 23. And these verses just say to you how to approach drinking too much and eating too much. It says here this is Proverbs 23 verses 20 and 21. Be not among drunkards or among gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags. Nicely put. I mean, I think that verse just says, look, don't eat too much. And it says, be not among drunkards. Now, that means the meaning really there is don't be one of them. Don't be one of these people. Don't be that guy who just has to eat too much, who is always eating. That's your way of life. And always drinking, not just drinking, but drinking too much. Because you'll end up being poor, is the point being made here. You're not going to be able to work. And we would say also, that's going to harm the economy.
Yes.
In fact, it puts it further, right at the start of that chapter. It puts it like this, is Proverbs 23 verse 2. Put a knife to your throat if you're given to appetite. It's that serious. Don't let your appetites control you. Put them to death. You're in control of them. If you're not the person in control of your appetites and responsible for them, who is? And if you're not in control of your appetites will control you. That's the message from the Bible. It's about one of personal responsibility, but as part of a community. I mean, other people, the Bible is full of advice on how you must love each other and help each other. Jesus says, this is how your people will know you're my disciples, that you love one another. So it's loving one another, caring for each other is very important, but we must take personal responsibility for the things that we obviously should be responsible for, like not eating too much just because we want to, or it feels nice, or we like the taste of it. Get a bit of a grip. Take control of the intake of your food. At least do that much for yourself, please. And I think the Bible says that, and I think we here, that's our message, isn't it? That look, this is something you need to take charge of, even if, like me, you really love cheese.
Yes. Well, not only that, I think that
cheese. Sorry, yes.
Get a grip of yourself, sir. I think that one of the things that we ought to establish is what is actually driving this epidemic, because it's quite noted, and it's been documented for many, many years, that 50 years ago, people led a more active life. So one of the reasons that people appear to be getting a little bit more portly is that they are citing a number of obvious reasons. First of all, cheap and high-energy foods, which are more accessible today than perhaps they were, 50 years ago. Also, people's lifestyles have changed. So there are more people who, for example, are working in office-based jobs because they're either getting in their cars, they're not actually walking to work, they're not actually moving enough. And you mentioned also that people are spending more time at home playing video games or watching television than perhaps they did. Say 50 years ago. Yeah. Nobody has a problem with people watching television or playing video games, but it's balancing out their overall lifestyle with exercise as well as curbing their intake of food.
Yes, if this isn't a moral judgment on the activities themselves, watching television, playing video games, actually, I mean, they could be active. You can get, I think it was first the Wii that video game that brought out active forms of video games.
Yes.
Others have them now. So it could be active, and you could be watching TV while you're running on the treadmill. So they're not in themselves bad things. But if what you're doing is just slouching around doing nothing because you're so involved in them. And I think that there is a problem particularly with that sort of activity, and that is you do it longer than you intend. And part of the problem, this is just my personal conviction, I believe that there's something to do with the flickering screen that has a hypnotic effect, so you end up watching it more than you mean to. You walk into a room when there's a TV playing, and everyone ends up just watching the TV rather than paying attention to the conversation. There's something that's drawing you to it. And so I think, just to say what I've done about that is I don't have a television. You see, I watch videos, I watch TV programs, but I would go and turn on the computer and watch them there. There isn't a TV playing that dominates the room, so you're not drawn into it. Because I recognise that could be a problem, not just for me, but for my children. So we don't have a television in the house. But there are other ways that you could do it, making sure that you turn it off. Maybe there's a particular time when you turn it off, or you plan your television watching.
Yes.
So, I'm going to watch these particular shows and no others. But, I mean, there are ways to control these things if they are a problem for you. And I suppose that's the thing that, having the television on and being able to watch it all day and all night isn't a problem for some people. Because they're so active that it doesn't impinge on their health. But if it is a problem for you, recognise it and then do something about it.
Well, exactly. Now, there have been some suggestions that certain parts of our community are perhaps more guilty than others. Now, is this a wealth issue? So, for example, are those more affluent areas of the country in a better position where they're more perceived to be more healthy, whereas the more depraved areas are possibly the areas where there are more obese people?
I want to just stop you there because you said more depraved areas. I think you meant more deprived areas.
And that too.
Although, I'm interested in the depraved areas, but that's for other reasons.
So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes,
which city do you believe in the United Kingdom actually statistically has the most overweight people?
Okay. Now, I believe that, you see, this is an interesting question, and I think I know the answer, although I haven't looked up anything to do with this. I think it's the city I'm now living in. I moved to Liverpool recently, and I believe now I haven't. Not that I've seen lots of unhealthy people.
Before you alienate all your fellow.
It's not because I've seen lots of fat people. I'm sitting at a window here. I can see out from the studio here out onto the street. I've seen people walking past. They haven't been particularly overweight, but I've just noticed that there's a lot of unhealthy food sold, even out on the street. There's a lot.
Yes.
So I'm going to say, well, they could be doing lots of exercise to wear it off, but maybe that's not the case. Liverpool is the most. It has the most overweight people. I'm going for that.
No.
Not Liverpool.
No, it's definitely not Liverpool.
It's not
Liverpool. For you.
Have you got in front of you? Do you have a list, or have you just got the most?
I've just got the most, and
so
let me give you a clue.
Give me a clue. Yeah.
Scotland.
Scotland, is it? Okay, Glasgow.
Oh, congratulations. Yes. Wild guess, yes.
I should have said that.
Yes,
the deep-fried Mars bars they're famous for. I should have said
unfortunately, that. Yes, land of the depraved and the deprived. But anyway, I'm also going to ask you...
That was a joke, Scottish listeners. That's a joke. We don't believe that.
Just to sort of ask you another question. So, Britain is the fattest country in Western Europe. So we've already mentioned this. But which actually is the least fattest.
The least fat country in Europe, just Europe.
In Europe, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go for the. Let's see. I think it's going to be something to do with healthy food. I'm going to say Spain.
Well, interestingly enough, and I know this might seem like it's a joke because we've been talking about intake of food, etc. It's actually Hungary. well.
So they're all hungry, so therefore they're very
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but actually, I think that the issue isn't just about Europe. We've mentioned before about the United States, and I'm just going to ask you, there's been an alarming statistic, quite noted, that a lot of Americans are overweight. But how much do you think, if you were to collect all of the overweight mass in pounds, that the United States, the population, how much do you think that they are overweight by in terms of body fat?
Now, this is
if you were to add it all up and put it on a large scale, what would that come to?
Well, I tell you what, it would be quite disgusting. A whole blubbering lump of American adipose tissue. Well, for the sake of our American listeners, I'm going to say that I'm not going to go for a huge number, but I'm going to say it's going to be £20 million.
Well, you might think that is a lot of fat, and that actually is. But it's, strangely enough, they are overweight by £4 billion. I'll repeat that: £4 billion of body fat.
Yes.
Now, what that means...
You think that's a lot, but if only the national debt for America were less with that amount, they'd be really pleased.
Well, that's true. Yes. But that's
converting pounds into dollars. Yeah, that is, yes. It's an interesting way of putting it, but really it's per person that's more interesting. There are a lot of obese people in America, but I don't think Britain is much different, is it? I don't know if you have the statistics there. But...
Yes, well, as I mentioned earlier on, I mean, nearly 1 in 4 are actually classified as being obese. So when you're walking down the street and you pass 4 people, at least one of them, in theory, should be obese.
Yes, should be, yes. And if they're not, you want to stop them and say, look, let's do something about this. You're not fitting in. Yes, it's now that it is that we talked about epidemics and the spread of disease epidemics a few episodes ago, but this is a really serious epidemic, isn't it? I know it's not spread by infection, but it's spread by lifestyle choices. But it's still this is an epidemic that's killing people. This is very serious.
This is the point that I think is not recognised by most people, particularly in what I'll call the more developed societies, where we all have access to wealth and money, which means that we can afford to, drive in our cars, we can buy luxurious goods and foods. But actual fact, because the statistics are growing more and more, it actually is alarming, because not only are adults at risk, children are at risk. And it is noted, I believe, that if children do suffer from this disability, certainly at a very early age, it's harder to actually rectify the problem later on in life. Because if you don't address it while you're in your growing stages, you will possibly suffer from bodily issues. And as I mentioned before, whether that's diabetes issues or whether that's issues to do with cancer, etc. So I guess the question should be about what do you do to deal with it? Now, let me ask you the question. What was a typical routine for you during the week?
Well, if you're talking about addressing this problem with putting on weight, one of the things that helps me not to put on weight is to make sure that I don't eat between meals. And if I do, well, not that I don't eat at all between meals. If I do eat between meals, it's going to be something that is, say, some fruit, some grapes, or that sort of thing. And this is a key thing. This is an important thing that occasionally I forget. And every time I do it, it makes things worse. Every time I forget it. And that is this: drink more water. And when I remember it, it comes back to mind because there's a saying, if you're drinking whiskey, the way to make yourself, there's an assumption in the saying that everyone drinks whiskey. The way to become healthier is take more water with it.
Yes.
So there's something that you always drink whiskey, but you can't stop drinking whiskey, so you just take more water. And taking more water with anything, with life, is you need to drink quite a lot of water. And I tested this out. Someone said to me, or I read somewhere, often when you feel hungry, you're not really hungry. You've just, as you were talking about earlier, you've had it ingrained in you, maybe learnt it from childhood. You ask for food when you're unhappy. You ask for food when you're feeling drained. You get the food in response. But what you really needed was to drink some water. Yes. And I found, so I replaced, say, eating stuff with drinking a bit of water. Now, that's how much sort of on a daily basis I go with that. But in terms of adding extra exercise into my life, well, one thing I try and do is, if possible, I walk somewhere rather than drive. And if it's further than I can drive, I try to cycle. That's not the other way around. If it's further than I can walk, I try to cycle. I can't cycle further than I can drive. But I try and put exercise into my life. But also, first thing in the morning, and for me it has to be first thing, I go for a run and do some exercises. I was going to say while I'm running, but that's not quite true. I stop and do some press-ups and sit-ups. And here where I'm living now, I can go and do some pull-ups. There's a pull-up bars just at the midpoint of my run. And so I do that exercise. It takes me something like 40 to 50 minutes, depending on the day. And come back. So I do that every weekday. So that's 5 days a week. And that just makes sure that my body keeps moving. It means that I'm digesting and absorbing the food in a healthy manner. What I mean by that is, just to illustrate that, if I don't do exercise for a bit, like I had, listeners will be interested to know, I had a hernia operation a few years ago, and during that time, before and afterwards, I wasn't doing as much exercise, and so put on weight, which I'm trying to take off now. The weight meant that I started, when I never had any other time in my life, started to have problems with, say, indigestion, feeling of reflux. And so digesting your food, and which then means you can then absorb it efficiently, goes with doing some exercise, something like running that really gets you moving every day. Could be swimming, could be cycling. So that's my routine. So it's running in the morning, making sure that I take exercise, walk to places rather than take transport where possible, and take more water with it. That's my routine. Yeah. What is it that you do? Now, you put on a little bit of weight, much as I've done, and then took it off again, and you're pretty fit now. So what is it, Mark? What is it that you've done? What is the change you've made?
Well, 10 years ago, I would admit that I would have been probably classified as being obese. And that was obviously a very concerning time. So the way that I readdressed it was I literally cut out all of the fatty foods that I would typically have indulged in. Mm-hmm. But what I typically also then chose to do was a little bit of some of the points that you've mentioned, is completely reassess the way I would go about my daily activity. I introduced exercise routines. So first of all, that would be what would be classified as a circuit routine, which would be weights, sit-ups, push-ups, squat thrusts, and so on. But at the same time, added in the running. Now, what I found is that doing it early in the morning, I would be able to set my day up by feeling far more active, alert, fresh for the day. And that is something that I now do on a daily basis. In fact, I reached a milestone point in my life. I reached 50, and ironically, at a point where you have to be assessed. For those people who have reached that point, they will know that they get a letter from the NHS basically asking you to do what is a health check. It's like a body MOT. It covers your cholesterol, your blood pressure, and really assesses whether you do suffer from any major issues. And I'm pleased to say that I've sailed through with flying colours, and it was inevitable.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. But inevitably, what was endorsed by the doctors was that having that discipline in the day made them also acknowledge the fact that I was doing the right thing by having something there where I was really, really addressing the fact that the older you get, the harder it is to maintain the same active lifestyle that you possibly could have had earlier in your childhood or in your teens, etc. Because I did find that certainly when I went through my 20s and 30s, I was beginning to lead a more sedentary lifestyle by just simply being in the car or being at a desk. And of course, we all face this. Not everybody has an active lifestyle. I mean, admittedly, if you're a farmer or if you're out and about in the field, you probably will do more physical activity. But I found that for probably about 20 years of my life, I wasn't really moving much. Whereas today, I've actually taken the decision to do something about it. And that, I guess, is the real point. If you don't do something about it, you will become obese. You can succumb to really the temptations that, I certainly suffered from many, many years ago.
And in terms of getting regular exercise, it does. I spend, say, 40 to 50 minutes each morning. You take, what is it, about an hour or so?
Yeah, well, mine is just over an hour. And I know that might seem a long time if you just simply make the effort to find a point in your day and you schedule your life around it, i.e., you take ownership and responsibility. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about you. You've got to think of your loved ones. You've got to think of your colleagues. Yeah. It's a point of responsibility.
Now, in terms of diet, though, you basically cut out unhealthy and very fattening foods.
Yes.
That's what you did? Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, I chose to do that because I felt that, actually, when I reassessed it, I don't miss it. I don't drink alcohol. And, okay, some people do, and I have no problem for those who do it in moderation. But I just found that by taking out of my diet, not only is it less pounds on my body, it's less pounds from my pocket.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I think something like that, some taking control. I mean, if you're not going to just cut out all sweet, fatty foods and all alcohol, you should at least know how much you're taking in. So you only need to take in a reasonable amount. And there's other places where there's plenty of advice given on how much you can eat and how much you can drink to be safe. People forget, and I just want to put this in, that alcohol itself does have a high calorie content. So
yes.
As soon as you're drinking alcohol, you're not just thinking, am I going to drink too much and then get drunk and make a fool of myself, or am I going to get alcohol poisoning? Think of the fact that it's got calories in it. Alcohol's a natural part of the diet, and you're going to be consuming those calories in the same way as for many other food stuff, and then piling them on as pounds if you're not doing the exercise. Yeah, so take control. The information is out there, and it's very serious. It was tempting for us at Mark and Pete to do a frivolous episode about being fat. There's something about fatness that leads to frivolity, making fun of people who are fat, which is unfair. It's a serious condition if you're too fat, and yet you have it within your grasp. For each individual, you, Mark, you, the listener, and me, we have it within our grasp to do something about it. I mean, some people do have, we wanted to say this in the show, some people do have a condition whereby they're overweight, and very overweight in some cases, because they have a particular medical condition. Maybe it's a glandular condition. They're very rare, but if that's you, we're not talking to you, and certainly no one's condemning you for being in that position. But if you're simply eating too much because you like eating, and you're not doing exercise because you're too lazy, then it is your fault that you're too fat. So stop it. Do something about it. You're killing yourself. You're depriving your friends of a friend, your family of a father or mother or daughter, whatever position you may hold, all those different positions. Yes. You're depriving someone of that in their life simply because you're too lazy to get out of bed a bit early and you indulge yourself with too much food. Do something about it. Put a stop to it. Slim down. Do it now. Don't wait. In fact, turn off the podcast now. We've got a few more things to say, but turn off the podcast now and go out and do some exercise. Start it now, because we don't want our listeners here to be dying too early. It's a serious subject.
Well, with that point, and again, I would endorse that. We don't want you to become another statistic of a victim of obesity. So we would ask you, again, what are you doing to stay fit? What are you doing to readdress this? So join us again for more colourful conversations with Mark and Pete.